The day my wife brought her lover, pardon me, the man I call my blood brother, into our home, I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That must be what they call the irony of life, right? Cynthia handed me a cup of coffee that morning. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said. I had never heard that icy tone from her in our 23-year marriage. "Terrence is staying here now, to keep an eye on you." Terrence, the man I'd called my blood brother for 25 years. Now, he was going to be my full-time caregiver. I couldn't believe the nonsense Cynthia was spouting, staring me straight in the face. "I'm not dead yet," I said. "But you're forgetting, Marcus," she said, without even blinking. "The doctor said so. Someone has to help you, and me." At that moment, I understood. They had both already buried me. Terrence arrived that evening, with his own gym bag. Cynthia helped him settle into the guest room. They whispered to each other, as if I wasn't there. Their whispers were barely audible, even from just behind the door. But I was taking note of everything. "This is yours," Cynthia said. "Yours. In my house." Terrence turned to me with that fake, concerned look. "Don't worry, big guy. I'm here now. I'll keep an eye on everything." Everything, meaning my money, my stocks, my private investment funds that those idiots didn't even know existed. That night, sitting alone in my study, something became clear. This betrayal wasn't the end for me. It was the beginning. I'm Marcus. I'm 52 years old, and I worked for 27 years as a senior executive in patient financial services at Atlanta General Hospital, AGH. I'm the guy who memorized every billing code, knew every insurance loophole, never forgot a single detail. And now, they think I've forgotten. That will be their biggest mistake. The quiet whispers Terrence heard as he carried that sports bag into the guest room took me back 30 years. I remembered when I saw that bag today. It wasn't the same bag, of course, but it was the same color, a pale gray. I remember Terrence arriving on his first day at AGH in March 1995, with a cheap sports bag of the same color. Memories in my mind sometimes become shrouded in fog, but moments and numbers with high emotional intensity seem to remain locked in a drawer. That day, my desk at the office was piled high with Medicaid reimbursement forms, new insurance files, bill calculations, staff payrolls. In that narrow, air-conditioned corridor of the finance department, the ozone smell of the photocopier filled my nose. My hands were stained with toner. As usual, Cynthia had said that morning, "Marcus, take a breather. You're killing yourself." I smiled at her. Fatigue wasn't a problem for me. Work was the only thing in my life I could control. Around noon, Hector from Human Resources called out, "Marcus, there's a new guy in the shipping department. The kid seems a bit difficult. Can you give him his orientation? No one else has time." When I looked up, I saw him. Terrence, 25 years old, his eyes filled with fear, his hands nervously clutching the handles of his bag. His jeans were worn, but clean. His shoes were old. His hair was cut short, as if he had just escaped trouble. "Hello," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm Terrence. I started today, in the transport department." I looked at him. I recognized the helplessness in his eyes. I, too, had once been a stranger in this building. "Marcus," I said, "come on, I'll show you everything." That day, I skipped lunch and spent 4 hours walking him around the hospital floors. I showed him the file transport system, the code numbers, how patients were moved to which departments. He tried to remember everything, but his attention was scattered. "It's too complicated, man," he said at one point, hopelessly. "I'll never learn this." "You will," I said. I didn't know anything when I started either. But if you're patient, this system will become like your natural language. That evening, after work, I found him smoking on the loading ramp. He was leaning against the wall, quietly puffing smoke. But I could see he was crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," he said, but he didn't wipe his face. "It's just, my probation officer asked for this month's fee." and I haven't gotten my paycheck yet. My car broke down too. I don't know how I'm going to get to work tomorrow. How did I feel at that moment? Maybe a sense of brotherhood, maybe just human compassion. I don't know, but the only thing I knew was that I said, "Stay with us tonight." I called Cynthia. "Honey, I need a place for a young guy from work for a few days," I said. "Is that okay?" "Of course, Marcus," Cynthia said. Her voice was warm then. "If you want, our home is open to anyone." Terrence came to our house that night. I put him up in the guest room. I gave him clean towels, a spare toothbrush, one of my t-shirts for the night. While I was making him a sandwich in the kitchen, he said, "I don't know how to thank you, man." His eyes were welling up again. "No need to thank me," I said. "Just focus on your job. We'll take care of the rest." Those few days turned into 2 weeks, then a month. Terrence stayed with us until he got his first paycheck. During that time, I taught him all the ins and outs of AGH in the mornings. Which doctor wanted which document, which files were sensitive, which nurses to stay away from. Terrence took notes, listened, learned. Then he said to me, "Marcus, you're my blood brother. The day I met you, everything changed for me." Back then, I believed his words, because I felt the same way. Terrence was my little brother, even though he wasn't. His success was my success. But now, today, as I carry his gray gym bag to the guest room in my house, I think the man who called me blood brother back then now makes me feel like a stranger in my own home. The door I opened for him back then is now the door to the cell I'm imprisoned in. Pain? Pain is a simple word. This is like ACID, burning inside me. With every breath, with every memory, it drips anew. The sandwich I gave him that night is now knotted in my throat like poison. What came after Terrence's bag was triggered by Cynthia's voice. Last night at the dinner table, Cynthia said to Terrence, "You're the man who saved my life." That fake gratitude flashed in her eyes. It was as if I wasn't there, as if I were invisible furniture. But those words brought 2003 to mind. Cynthia's terrible, dark year. It was July that year. The dot-com bubble had burst, the economy was in ruins. Cynthia's luxury boutique in Buckhead had gone bankrupt. Suppliers demanded payment, and Cynthia was unemployed and in debt for 6 whole months. I remember it in our living room. Cynthia, on that old couch, staring at the ceiling, her eyes swollen from crying. "What are we going to do, Marcus?" she said, her voice cracking. "The mortgage, the cars, the bills. How are we going to pay for it all?" I looked at her. What I saw in her eyes was a helplessness that tore me apart. Cynthia, 29 years old, that strong, proud woman, was now wandering around the house like a convict. "Don't worry," I said. "I'll take care of it." "How will you take care of it, Marcus? Your hospital salary isn't enough for 2 people." "It's enough," I said. And it was, because I had already calculated everything. At the time, my salary at AGH was average, but I had a small fund I had been saving for years, private stocks. Thanks to my position at AGH, I knew which healthcare stocks would rise, which insurance funds would pay dividends, which small tech stocks were worth investing in. I had accumulated small legal investments that no one else knew about. During those crisis months, I used all my savings. I paid our mortgage, our bills, even Cynthia's credit card debt from this fund. I never complained. I never said, "I did this." But it wasn't enough, because Cynthia's pride was broken. Every night when I came home, I found her in the same chair, in the same position. I showed her job listings. "Apply here," I said. "This company is looking for a manager." "They don't want me, Marcus," she would say. "I'm old, inexperienced, worthless." "You're not worthless," I would say, but she didn't believe me. In September, one day when I came home from AGH, Cynthia was in the living room again, but this time there was something different on her face. There was a glimmer of hope. "Marcus," she said, A friend called. She has a small retail job. It doesn't pay much, but it could be a start. Then take it, I said. Every start has to come from somewhere. But the job was really small. After that month, Cynthia only earned enough to pay our electricity bill. Everything else still came from me. The mortgage, water, food, transportation, everything. One night in October, Cynthia came home exhausted. Her feet were swollen. As I massaged her feet in the bathroom, I felt the tension in her shoulders. "How was your day?" I asked. "Exhausting," she said. She didn't say anything else, but there was shame in her eyes. Shame at taking money from me. That night, as she lay down next to me in bed, she whispered, "Marcus, I've let you down." "No," I said. "You never disappointed me." A woman should support her husband, but I can't. "We're a team, Cynthia," I said. "Sometimes I carry you, sometimes you carry me. That's how it works." That night, she hugged me, and I felt her crying on my shoulder. She was crying. My strong, proud wife was crying. What did I feel at that moment? A mixture. Compassion, love, responsibility. Maybe a little pride too, because I was the one keeping our family together. I was the one reaching out to Cynthia when she fell, and she knew it. I felt her gratitude. But now, today, as she tells Terrence at the dinner table, "You're the man who saved my life." Without looking at me, I think, wasn't I the one who saved your life back then? When you were sitting helplessly in that chair, wasn't I the one who pulled you out of that debt pit? That night you were crying, wasn't I the one who told you, "We're a team"? And now, the other half of the team has been replaced by another man, at a time I didn't know about. This pain is like a silent scream. No one hears it, but I feel it growing a little more every day. In the center of my chest, it's as if every bite I swallow gets stuck in my throat, with the weight of every moment Cynthia has forgotten. This morning, Jamal called me. His voice sounded worried on the phone. "Uncle, how are you? Are you okay?" Jamal. My nephew. Jamal, who grew up without a mother, like my own son. Hearing his voice brought 2010 to mind, the year my sister Keisha died. Keisha was 3 years younger than me, but she was much more fragile than me. Her life was hard. She trusted the wrong men. She broke easily. When Jamal was 13, Keisha was diagnosed with leukemia, stage 3. The doctor said, "There's a chance, but aggressive treatment is needed." Aggressive treatment meant a lot of money. Chemotherapy, drugs, hospital bills. Keisha had no insurance. She had no money. One day, Keisha called me. Her voice was tearful. "Marcus, I need to ask you something, but I can't." "Ask," I said. "Money. For Jamal. If I go, that child has to stay in school. He has to go to college. But I have no money." "Keisha," I said, "you're not going to die. You're going to get better. But what if I do die?" Her voice was so broken as she said that I started crying too. "You won't die," I said again. But we both knew it was a lie. From that day on, I started sending half of my AGH salary to Keisha every month for her treatment. Cynthia didn't know. No one knew. I just made a transfer from the bank every month and told Keisha, "Don't worry, we're here for you." But it wasn't enough, because Keisha's illness progressed rapidly. The chemotherapy didn't work. The cancer spread throughout her body. The doctor said, "There is an experimental treatment, but it's very expensive." How expensive? $200,000. $200,000. At the time, even my annual salary wasn't that much. But I found the money. How did I find it? Because I liquidated my private investment funds at AGH. I spent everything I had saved up until then, everything I had saved for my retirement. I told Cynthia, "I borrowed money for my sister." She asked, "Marcus, that's too much. How are we going to pay it back?" "We'll pay it back," I said. "Somehow, we'll pay it back." Keisha lived 6 more months with that experimental treatment. 6 months. And during those 6 months, I visited her in the hospital every weekend. I held her hand. I stroked her hair. I told Jamal, "Your mom is going to be okay." But Jamal saw the lie in my eyes. The day Keisha died, Jamal hugged me in the hospital hallway and cried. He was 16. "Uncle, my mom's gone," he said. "What am I going to do now?" "You're with me," I said. "You're always with me." After that day, I paid for Jamal's school expenses, his tuition at Morehouse College, his books, his clothes. Sometimes Cynthia would say, "Marcus, this is too much. We don't even have our own child, but you're taking care of someone else's." "He's not someone else's child," I said. "He's my son." That year, I became the person who worked the longest hours at AGH because I had to get the money from somewhere. I stayed in the office late every night, took on extra work, and worked overtime wherever possible. My body ached, my eyes were tired, but when I thought of Jamal, I told myself, "Keep going, Marcus. This child is your responsibility." How did I feel? Tired. A deep, bone-deep tiredness. But also, a sense of purpose, because Jamal was someone who gave meaning to my life. After Keisha left, Jamal was my reason for living. But now, today, when I hear Jamal's worried voice on the phone, I wonder, where was Cynthia all those years? Where was Terrence when she told me, "This is too much"? Terrence was already in our lives back then, my blood brother. So, was he there for me when Keisha died? Did he comfort me at the funeral? No, he just said, "I'm so sorry, man," and then went back to work. Because back then, he had nothing to gain from my pain. Now when I hear Jamal's worried voice, a piece of me breaks, because I know Jamal is my only real family. Cynthia and Terrence are just the ones who have my wallet. This pain is eating away at me. It's as if all my sacrifices are now useless labor. All that money I spent on Keisha, all those nights I gave up for Jamal. What for? So that Cynthia and Terrence could now dance on my pain in my house with my money. Now sitting here alone in my study, all these memories are suffocating me. Cynthia and Terrence are watching TV in the living room. Their laughter can be heard. In my house, with my money, on top of my sacrifices. And I wonder, do these people ever remember what I did? Or am I just an ATM to them? A tool? Something to be thrown away after use? Maybe I am. Maybe I always have been. But now something has changed. Because I have Alzheimer's, I'm supposed to forget everything. But actually, I haven't forgotten anything. And soon, they will realize this too. The first week, Terrence started bringing me my medication. At breakfast, when I sat down at the table, Terrence came over. He had a small tray in his hand. On it were white pills and a glass of water. "Good morning, big guy," he said in that artificially cheerful voice of his. "Don't forget to take your pills." I looked at him. "I take my own pills," I said. "No, Marcus," he said, his voice a little harsher now. "The doctor said someone has to remind you. Otherwise, you forget." "I don't forget." "You do forget," said Cynthia from behind her magazine. She wasn't even looking at me. "You skipped them twice last week." Was that a lie? I didn't know. Maybe it was true. But what bothered me wasn't forgetting my pills. What bothered me was that tray in Terrence's hand. As if I were a child. As if I couldn't even hold a glass of water by myself. "Take these," said Terrence, holding the pills out to my mouth. I took the pills. I swallowed them. Terrence smiled and took the tray back. That evening, while taking out the trash in the kitchen, I saw something. Medicine boxes. Empty medicine boxes. My Alzheimer's medicine. There were price tags on the boxes. And on the receipt underneath it said, AGH Employee Insurance, 90% discount. Holding that receipt in my hand, I realized something. Terrence was getting these pills using my AGH health insurance. My insurance. My golden insurance entitlement earned through 27 years of work. And now, he was bringing these medications as if they were his own money, acting as if he were doing me a favor. That night, lying in bed, I thought, I worked at AGH for 27 years. Those premiums deducted from my paycheck every month have now become a tool of control in Terrence's hands. He is bringing me medication using my own entitlement, and I feel like I have to thank him. Do you know what helplessness is? It's that suffocating feeling you get when someone else takes ownership of something you bought with your own money. It's as if every pill you swallow is actually destroying a part of your own dignity. It's as if every morning when I take that cup from Terrence's hand, I'm actually handing over a piece of my freedom to him. But I didn't speak up, because what could I say? This is my insurance, I would say. Then Cynthia would say, Marcus, you're a sick man. Terrence is helping you, and I would feel guilty. Again. That's how it started, with a small, seemingly innocent act of control. In the third week, Cynthia asked me for something. After dinner, we were sitting in the living room. Cynthia was watching TV. Terrence was washing dishes in the kitchen. I was trying to read a book, but I couldn't follow the lines, because my mind was constantly elsewhere. Marcus, Cynthia said, her voice serious. I need to talk to you. I looked up. Yes? The key to the safe in your study. Where is it? When I heard that sentence, it was as if my heart stopped beating. The safe, my safe. That small gray metal safe I kept hidden behind the bookcase in my study. What was inside? My whole life. My passport, old pay stubs, our marriage certificate, and most importantly, the investment fund documents. Those high-interest AGH-managed investment documents that no one knew about. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Marcus, you're forgetful now, Cynthia said. Her voice was soft, but firm. The doctor said we should keep important documents in a safe place. Terrence and I need to check them, for your sake. No, I said. Cynthia frowned. No, that's my safe, MY documents. Marcus, she said, her voice a little harder now. This is nonsense. You're a sick man. Someone needs to help you. Give me the key to your safe. I won't. At that moment, Terrence came out of the kitchen. He had a glass of water in his hand. Marcus, he said in that fake concerned voice, why are you being so stubborn? Cynthia is just trying to help. I don't want her help. But you're sick, man, said Terrence. He came over and took my hand. His hand was cold. We're here for your own good. Why don't you trust us? I looked at his face. That face. 25 years ago, that face that hugged me, crying on the first day. Now, that same face was demanding something from me. And I understood then. This was not an offer of help. It was a demand, an order. Where's the key, Marcus? Cynthia asked again. I didn't answer, because I knew. If I gave her that key, I would lose everything. That safe was my last line of defense. Those documents were proof of my existence. Cynthia stood up. Marcus, I'm asking you one last time. Where's the key? I don't know, I said. I was lying. But what else could I say? Cynthia looked at me. Something changed in her eyes. Anger? Disappointment? I didn't know. But at that moment, Cynthia walked towards the study. Terrence followed her. I got up and tried to run after them, but my legs were shaking. When I entered the study, Cynthia was rummaging through the bookcase. She was scattering my books, my boxes, my belongings, all over the place. Stop, I said. What are you doing? I'm finding the safe, she said. No, you can't rummage through that. But it was too late. Cynthia found the gray metal safe at the back of the bookcase. She pulled it out. She put it on the floor. Open it, she said. No. Cynthia turned to me. Her face was red. Marcus, this is stupid. Everything in this house belongs to both of us. Open the safe. It's mine, I said. My voice was shaking. It's my safe. MY documents. Marcus, said Terrence, coming closer to me. Calm down. No one is taking anything of yours. We're just checking. But I knew. This wasn't just checking. This was an attack on my last private space. Cynthia searched for something. Then she pulled something out of the closet, a large, sturdy crowbar, and right before my eyes, she started breaking the safe's lock. The sound she made as she forced the crowbar against the edge of the safe was louder than my heartbeat. "Stop!" I yelled. "Stop! Please!" But she didn't stop. A few minutes later, the safe door creaked open with a metallic clang. The safe was open. What was inside? Documents. Investment fund documents, bank statements, old pay stubs, passports. My entire life was sitting inside that little safe. Cynthia took out the documents. She began examining them one by one. "What are these?" she asked. "Investments," I said. My voice was barely audible. "How much?" "I don't know." Cynthia looked at the documents. Then she turned to Terrence. "Look at this," she said. "Almost $1 million worth of stock." Terrence looked at me, his eyes shining. "Marcus, were you hiding these from us?" "No," I said. These were my retirement funds, my savings." "But these are marital property," Cynthia said. "They belong to both of us." At that moment, I felt the deepest helplessness in the world. For 20 years, I had saved a little every month. Using my knowledge at AGH, knowing which healthcare stocks would rise, I had invested wisely. And now, Cynthia was looking at those stocks and saying, "These are ours," as if she had done nothing to save that money. As if I hadn't worked all those years, spent every penny carefully, done anything for my future. Cynthia gathered the documents. "I'll keep these," she said. "You might lose them." "No," I said. "They're mine." "Marcus, you're sick," she said. She looked into my eyes, and in that look, there was no love anymore, only determination. "I'll keep these safe." She took the documents, she closed the safe, and she left the room. Terrence followed her. I stood there, alone, in front of a broken safe. I felt empty, as if someone had taken me out from inside. That night, I cried in bed. I cried silently, because I knew that if I raised my voice, they would label me the hysterical sick man. In the 4th week, Cynthia took me to the doctor. Dr. Evans had been our family doctor for years. He was in his 40s, a trustworthy man, or so I thought. Cynthia was with me in the office. Terrence, too. They were talking to the doctor, as if I wasn't even there. "Dr. Evans," Cynthia said, "Marcus's condition is getting worse. He keeps forgetting things. Sometimes he can't even remember what day it is." I looked at her. "That's a lie," I said. "I remember everything." "Marcus, calm down," said Terrence, holding my hand. "No one here is attacking you." Dr. Evans turned to me. "Marcus, what day is it today?" "Thursday," I said. "The date?" I paused. "The date? Which month?" At that moment, the fogginess in my mind felt real. Small, routine details were like mazes to me. "I don't know," I said. The doctor took notes. "Okay, Marcus, I'm going to ask you some more questions. Are you ready?" The next 10 minutes were torture. The doctor asked me simple questions. Count down from 100 in increments of 7. Repeat these words. Draw this shape. I could answer some questions. I couldn't answer others. And every time I couldn't, I saw that look of satisfaction on Cynthia and Terrence's faces. It was as if my failure was a victory for them. After the examination, the doctor turned to Cynthia. "The situation is seriously concerning," he said. "Marcus's ability to live independently is declining. Making financial decisions or managing important documents could be risky." "So?" Cynthia asked. "Well," said the doctor, lowering his voice but loud enough for me to hear, "you might consider a conservatorship. It would be safer for Marcus if you made his legal decisions." Conservatorship. That word set off alarm bells in my head. "No," I said. "I don't want a conservatorship." "Marcus," Cynthia said, softly but firmly, "this is for your own good." "No," I raised my voice. "I can make my own decisions." "Marcus, calm down," Terrence said. I won't calm down. You're trying to take my money. You're treating me like an old man, like a child. Dr. Evans looked at me. There was pity in his eyes, but there was something else behind it too, as if to say, this man is truly ill. Marcus, no one is trying to take your money, but your illness is progressing. And unfortunately, you may make worse decisions in the future. A guardian is a tool to protect you. It won't protect me, I said. It will imprison me. But no one was listening, because at that moment, in their eyes, I was truly a sick man, a hysterical, delusional, reality-blinded sick man. As I left the office, Cynthia said to me, Marcus, we're going to do this. It's best for you. At that moment, something inside me snapped. It wasn't just helplessness I felt anymore. There was a kind of anger now, because I was a man who had worked at AGH for 27 years, who had learned all these legal documents, all these intricacies of the system. And now, this woman, in cahoots with a doctor who was messing with my head, was trying to take control of my entire life by labeling me as sick. But again, I didn't speak up, because I knew there was nothing I could do. Or so I thought. In the 5th week, Jamal came to visit me. That day, the doorbell rang early in the morning. Terrence opened it. Jamal, he said with feigned joy. How are you, young man? I'm fine, Terrence. Can I see my uncle? Sure, come in. When Jamal came in, my heart lifted the moment I saw him. My nephew, Jamal, whom I raised like my own son after my sister died. I hugged him. Jamal, I said, I missed you so much. Me too, uncle, he said. There was worry in his eyes. How are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. But I wasn't, and Jamal knew it. We sat in the living room. Cynthia brought us tea. Make yourselves comfortable, she said. But she didn't leave. She stood there, watching us. Jamal looked at me. Uncle, I've been trying to call you a lot lately, but you don't answer your phone. My phone? I said. Then I remembered. My phone. Where was it? I don't know. Maybe I lost it. Although I suspected Cynthia had turned it off without my knowledge and put it in a drawer, I wasn't sure. This vagueness worked in their favor. Jamal turned to Cynthia. Where's my uncle's phone? Oh, said Cynthia with that feigned innocence. Marcus, he's always losing his phone. We put it in a safe place to prevent unnecessary calls. Unnecessary calls? Jamal said, his voice hardening. Am I an unnecessary call? No, of course not, Cynthia said. But Marcus, he gets confused sometimes. He dials random numbers. We're just trying to protect him. Jamal turned to me. Uncle, did you ask for this? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Had I lost the phone, or had Cynthia taken it? My memory was hazy. At that moment, Cynthia's phone rang, but Terrence hurried into the kitchen. I'll get it, he said. Jamal turned to me. Uncle, he said, I'm graduating from Morehouse. I want you to be there. Of course I'll be there, I said. But, said Cynthia, the doctor doesn't want Marcus to make long trips. It stresses him out. We'll make a video for you. A video, said Jamal. His voice trembled with anger. My uncle isn't coming to my graduation? Jamal, Cynthia said calmly. Marcus is a sick man now. He shouldn't be stressed. And you constantly calling and upsetting him isn't good for him. I'm not upsetting him, Jamal said. You are, Terrence said, coming back from the kitchen. When you called last week, Marcus was upset for 2 days. He cried thinking about you. It's bad for his health. Jamal looked at me. His eyes were filled with tears. Uncle, is it true? Am I upsetting you? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. Had I really cried? Maybe. But I cried because I missed Jamal, not because of him. Cynthia approached Jamal. Look, Jamal, we love you. But Marcus's health is our priority. If you want to visit him, let us know first. We'll arrange a suitable time. Okay? Okay? Jamal said, incredulous. You're telling me when I can see my own uncle? Yes, Cynthia said, her voice now clear. Because we live in this house, and we are Marcus's caregivers. Jamal looked at me one last time. Something broke in his eyes. Then he stood up. Uncle, I love you, he said. And I'm here for you. Always. He walked toward the door. Cynthia and Terrence saw him off. After the door closed, Terrence said, "That boy is very emotional. It's not good for Marcus." Sitting there alone in the living room, I realized something. I was now isolated from Jamal, too. I had no phone. My visitors were monitored. I was living in my own home, like a prisoner. And in that moment, I began to feel not just helplessness, but anger. But still, I thought, what can I do? I'm just a sick man. No one is listening to me. No one believes me. Maybe I really am sick. Maybe this is paranoia. But a voice inside me said, "No, Marcus, you're not sick. You're being exploited." But that voice wasn't strong enough. Yet. Not yet. On the 6th week, a Friday morning, everything changed. That morning, when I woke up, the house was quiet. Quieter than usual. Cynthia and Terrence usually woke up early and had breakfast, but that morning, there was no sound. I got out of bed. When I opened the bedroom door, I saw that the guest room door was slightly ajar. There were sounds coming from inside. Whispers. I approached. Listening closely, I heard Cynthia and Terrence's voices. "We'll meet with the lawyer this week," Cynthia said. "The documents for the guardianship are ready. We have Dr. Evans' report. There are no more problems now." "Are you sure?" Terrence said. "What if Marcus doesn't agree?" "He'll have to agree," Cynthia said. There was a coldness in her voice. "The doctor's report is sufficient. Marcus lacks cognitive capacity. The court will grant us guardianship." "What about the shares?" Terrence asked. "We'll get those too. They're all considered marital property. There's no proof Marcus accumulated them on his own." "What about Jamal?" "The boy is suspicious." "Jamal can't do anything," said Cynthia. "He's just a nephew. He has no legal right. We are Marcus's legal wife and caregiver here." Terrence laughed. That laugh froze me inside. "So you were right, honey. Marcus's illness was actually a blessing in disguise for us." "Yes," said Cynthia. "It's a good thing he was diagnosed. Otherwise, that man would have kept that money forever." When I heard that sentence, I felt like I had been struck down. My knees trembled. I held onto the wall with my hand, because at that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't even a plan. It was a hunt. And I was the prey. I turned back. I went into my bedroom. I closed the door quietly. Then I sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. For years I helped them. I took Terrence into my home. I kept Cynthia going during her crises. I raised Jamal. And now, these two people see my illness as an opportunity. They are using my pain, my fear, my helplessness as an opportunity. At that moment, something inside me broke. But at the same time, something was built. An anger, a determination, a clarity. I took a deep breath. Then I stood up. I looked in the mirror. I looked into my eyes. "Marcus," I said to myself, "you're not sick. You're not stupid. You're not weak. You're a man who worked at AGH for 27 years, who knows every legal loophole, who filed every document. And now, these people who are trying to hunt you down have made their biggest mistake." "What mistake?" "They really thought you were forgetful." That morning, as my heart was racing, I remembered something. Years ago, my colleague at AGH, Ms. Hattie, had said to me, "Marcus, you always take notes. You back everything up. If you ever get into trouble, those notes will save you. Miss Hattie. The advisor. My old work friend. She had retired, but we still talked. When was the last time I spoke to her? Months ago. Maybe longer. But I remembered something. Ms. Hattie had once told me, "Marcus, if one day your phone is taken from you, you have a spare key at my house." Remember, this was proof that I trusted her in a moment of loss, a moment of chaos. That moment suddenly came to mind. Ms. Hattie's house. It was 20 minutes away from here, and I could go there because Cynthia and Terrence thought I couldn't go out anymore. But I could. I could still go out. That morning I got dressed quietly. In the back corner of the closet, there was an old bag. I remembered there was still some cash in it. I took the bag. I checked my wallet. Yes, I had money. Then I walked quietly to the front door. Cynthia and Terrence were still in the guest room. They were still whispering. I walked past the kitchen door and unlocked the door. Cynthia and Terrence had never imagined that someone with Alzheimer's could go out into the street and make a plan. I opened the door. I went outside. The sun hit my face. How long had it been since I'd been outside? I didn't know. But in that moment, I tasted freedom. I started walking. The addresses were still clear in my mind. Street names, turning points. Because I didn't forget. Maybe I forgot some small details, but I never forgot the important things, the vital things. 20 minutes later, I was in front of Miss Hattie's house. I rang the doorbell. Ms. Hattie opened it. She was surprised to see me. "Marcus," she said, "is that you? My goodness, I haven't seen you in so long." "Ms. Hattie," I said, my voice trembling, "I need your help." She let me in. We sat in the living room. I told her everything about Cynthia, Terrence, my illness, the safe, the will, everything. Ms. Hattie listened, her eyes filled with tears. "Those bastards," she said. "Those damn bastards." "What should I do, Ms. Hattie?" I asked. "I have nothing left. They have my documents. They control my money. I don't even have a phone." Ms. Hattie took my hand. "Marcus, you're my smartest friend. You worked at AGH for 27 years. You know every document, every loophole. If they're trying to steal from you, you can teach them a lesson." "How?" "Jamal," said Miss Hattie. "Reach out to him. He's your most loyal ally, and I'll help you, because I still have my old connections at AGH. If Cynthia tries to take your shares, we can stop her." At that moment, a glimmer of hope lit up inside me. "Really?" "Really," said Miss Hattie. "But first we have to reach Jamal. That kid will fight for you." Ms. Hattie gave me her phone. I dialed Jamal's number. "Hello?" said Jamal. "Jamal," I said. "It's Uncle Marcus." "Uncle," Jamal said, surprised. "Where are you calling from? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, "and I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Meet me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at Ms. Hattie's house. Cynthia and Terrence must not know." "Uncle, what's going on?" "I'll explain tomorrow," I said. "But know this, I haven't forgotten anything, and they made a huge mistake." I hung up the phone. Ms. Hattie looked at me. "Marcus, are you really going to fight them?" "Yes," I said. My voice was firm. "Because I am Marcus. I worked at AGH for 27 years. I know every document, every legal loophole, and now, that knowledge will be used against them." That day, at Miss Hattie's house, we started making a plan. A plan for revenge, but not just revenge. A plan for justice. Because Cynthia and Terrence thought I was weak. They thought I was sick. They thought I had no memory. But they forgot one thing. I am an archivist, and archivists never forget. That day, as I walked home, I felt something new inside me. I was no longer the victim. I was now the hunter. And they would realize this too late. Cynthia and Terrence saw my illness as a lucky break. But the real luck was mine. Because they thought they had finished me off completely. But I was just getting started. When I returned home that evening, Cynthia and Terrence hadn't even noticed me. It was as if I wasn't there. But it didn't matter anymore, because I was no longer an invisible man. I was a warrior, planning his revenge. The next morning, as I walked toward Miss Hattie's house, my steps were heavy. With every step, a hesitation. At every corner, a pause. Should I really do this? I asked myself. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Cynthia and Terrence are really trying to help me. But then I remembered that morning's conversation. Marcus's illness was an opportunity for us. Those words. Those cold, calculating words. When I arrived at Ms. Hattie's house, Jamal was already there. He ran up and hugged me when he saw me. "Uncle," he said, "I was so worried." I looked at him. This young man, 28 years old, had grown up in my arms after losing his mother. I had paid for his Morehouse tuition. I had cried at his graduation. He was my son, my real son. And now, what was I going to tell him? "Jamal, my wife and my closest friend are trying to exploit me, and I'm plotting revenge against them." I hesitated. Maybe I shouldn't say anything. Maybe I should just accept this situation. I'm an old man. Maybe I really am sick. Maybe this is paranoia. But Jamal looked into my eyes, and in that moment, what I saw in his eyes shook me. Concern. Deep, genuine concern. He was worried about me. Real concern. The kind of concern I never saw in Cynthia's or Terrence's eyes. "Uncle," Jamal said, "what happened to me? Please tell me." And I told him everything. The safe, the will, the phone, the conversation that morning. Everything. As Jamal listened, his face changed. First shock, then disbelief, then anger. "Those bastards," he said, his voice trembling. "Those damn bastards. You gave them everything. Everything." "I know," I said. My voice wouldn't come out. "So what are we going to do?" Jamal asked. "Should we go to the police?" Ms. Hattie interjected. "The police can't do anything, not yet, because Cynthia is legally Marcus's wife, and she hasn't been appointed guardian yet. For now, she's just gotten the papers. That's not legally a crime." "So what can we do?" Jamal said. I took a deep breath. "Revenge," I said. "But legal revenge. Beat them. At their own game." Jamal looked at me. "How?" And right then, in that moment of hesitation, something happened. There was a heaviness in my heart. Because I knew, if I went down this road, there would be no turning back. My 23-year marriage to Cynthia, my 25-year friendship with Terrence, all of it would end. Completely end. But hadn't it already ended? In their conversation that morning, they had already buried me. I was just a tool to them now, an ATM, a sick man, an obstacle. "Uncle?" Jamal said. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. But I wasn't fine, because there was still compassion inside me, still a shred of hope. Maybe Cynthia really loved me, but also wanted the money. Maybe Terrence was really my friend, but was having a moment of weakness. No. These thoughts were weakening me. That evening, when I returned home, I saw something. In the living room, on the table, there was an old photo album. It was open, as if someone had been looking through it and then forgotten. I approached. Inside the album were our old photos, Cynthia and me, our wedding photos. 2002. I was 29, she was 30. How young we were, how happy we were. In one photo, Cynthia was looking at me. There was something in her eyes. Love? Maybe. Or maybe just happiness. Back then, everything was simpler. There was no money. But there was love. Or so I thought. I touched that photo. My fingertips traced Cynthia's face. This woman once told me, "You are my everything, Marcus." This woman once held my hand and said, "I will grow old with you." And now, the same woman shares a bed with another man. The same woman is planning to steal my money. The same woman sees my illness as a lucky break. At that moment, a feeling of compassion welled up inside me. Maybe that woman was still there. Maybe the old Cynthia was under Terrence's influence. Maybe if I could reach her, everything would be okay. I closed the album. I went to my bedroom. I sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking. Maybe I should talk to her again, I thought. Maybe I should ask her, "Cynthia, what are you doing? I'm your husband. Don't you love me anymore?" But then, I remembered that conversation. Marcus's illness is an opportunity for us. Cynthia had said that. Not Terrence, Cynthia. And that sentence said it all. That sentence summed up our 23-year marriage. I was an opportunity for her. At first, an opportunity for stability. Now, a financial opportunity. That night, I cried. But this time, I wasn't just crying out of sadness. I was also crying out of anger. The next day, we met Miss Hattie and Jamal again. Ms. Hattie handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "An old letter Terrence wrote to you," Ms. Hattie said. "You gave me years ago to keep. Remember?" No, I didn't remember, but I took the envelope. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, Terrence's handwriting. Date, March 15th, 1998. Dear Marcus, today was the worst day of my life. My probation officer was going to throw me back inside. I had no money left. I was going to be on the street. But you took me into your home. You gave me food. You gave me a future. Marcus, you are more than my real brother. You are my savior, and I will never forget this kindness. I will be loyal to you for the rest of my life, because you are everything to me. Yours forever, Terrence. As I read that letter, my hands trembled. My eyes filled with tears, because those words were once true. Terrence had written those words sincerely. Back then, that young, desperate man was truly grateful. But what had happened now? That grateful man was now sleeping in my house, in my wife's bed. That loyal man was now planning to steal my money. Do people change? Or are people always the same, only the opportunities change? At that moment, a battle raged inside me. On one side, the compassion I felt for the old Terrence. On the other, the anger I felt toward the current Terrence, which was real. Both were real. Jamal took my hand. "Uncle," he said, "that letter is in the past. Now, you have to look at today. Today, Terrence is using you. Today, he is trying to kill you." "Kill me?" I said. "He's not killing me. He's just taking my money." "Uncle," Ms. Hattie said, her voice firm, "he's killing your spirit. He's killing your honor. He's killing your freedom. That's worse than physical death." That sentence shook me, because she was right. I was slowly dying. Every day, a little more. Every medication, every checkup, every humiliation, all of it was killing me. And in that moment, the mercy inside me died. In its place came pure. R-A-G-E. "Okay," I said. My voice was firm. "I'll get revenge." But how? Ms. Hattie asked me, "Marcus, you worked at AGH for years. You must have left something there. A backup document, a copy, something." I thought, yes. For years, I had made copies of every important document, every stock purchase, every bank transaction, every private account transfer. I archived them all. "But," I said, "those documents were in my safe." And Cynthia took the safe. "No other backup?" Jamal asked. Another backup, I thought. Then I remembered. "Jamal," I said, "there's a box at your house. Remember? Years ago, I gave you a special box. It had your mother's photos in it." "Yes," said Jamal. "I still have it." "At the bottom of that box," I said, "there's a brown envelope. Open that envelope. There's a key inside." "A key? What key?" "In my old AGH office, there was an old, unused locked drawer. After I retired, I know they forgot to change the lock on that drawer. Miss Hattie, you know that, right?" Ms. Hattie nodded. "Yes, a young executive works at your old desk now, but the old furniture is still the same. And yes, they didn't change those old system locks very often." "Open that drawer," I told Jamal. Inside, there's a notebook. A brown-covered, old notebook. That notebook contains all my financial transactions from the last 10 years. Every stock purchase, every personal account, every transfer, it's all there. Jamal's eyes lit up. Is this proof? Yes, I said. This is proof that I accumulated those shares on my own. Cynthia's signature isn't on them, because those transactions started before the marriage. And during the marriage, I continued them through my own private efforts. Under Georgia law, these shares are not marital property. They are my separate property. Ms. Hattie smiled. Marcus, you're still a genius. Ms. Hattie asked me, so what's the plan? Is finding the documents enough? No, I said. The documents are just the first step. The second step is to prevent Cynthia from getting the guardianship. How? Can you still talk to your old friends at AGH? I asked Miss Hattie. Yes, why? Because, I said, Cynthia will get the guardianship based on the doctor's report. But if there's another doctor's report, one that says I'm cognitively competent, then the court won't grant the guardianship. But Dr. Evans already gave the report, Jamal said. Dr. Evans was my personal doctor, I said. But AGH has its own doctors. There's a special health unit for retired executives. If I get a report from there, and that report contradicts Dr. Evans' report, the court will evaluate both. And it will hesitate. Ms. Hattie understood. So, you're going to get a report from one of the AGH doctors. Yes, but I can't go alone, because Cynthia and Terrence follow me everywhere. Will you come with me? Of course, said Miss Hattie, and I'll tell my old friends. They'll support you. What about Cynthia? Asked Jamal. What if she finds out you're going to AGH? She won't, I said, because I'll tell her something else. I'll say, I'm going to church with Ms. Hattie. She'll believe that, because I'm harmless. In her eyes now. Ms. Hattie looked at me. Marcus, are you really ready to do this? Because it's going to be exhausting, and emotionally, very difficult. I looked at her. I looked into her eyes. Ms. Hattie, I said, I worked at AGH for 27 years. I archived every document. I learned every legal loophole. That knowledge will save me now. Yes, it will be exhausting. Yes, it will be difficult. But I have to do it. Because if I don't, Cynthia and Terrence will steal my entire life. And I can't stand by and watch that happen. Jamal asked, what about the slideshow? 3 types of slides, I said. The first type, evidence of Cynthia and Terrence's relationship. Photos, messages, witness statements. I gathered these over the last few weeks because they thought I wasn't watching, but I saw everything. The second type? Ms. Hattie asked. The second type, my financial documents, how the shares were accumulated. This will refute Cynthia's claim of marital property. The third type? The third type, I said, my voice cracking, is a testimony I wrote, addressed to the guests. In that text, I will describe what Cynthia and Terrence did to me, but not in an emotional language, in a cold, clear, documented language. Because if I use emotions, they will call it the ramblings of a sick man. But if I use the documents, no one can deny it. Jamal hugged me. Uncle, you're so strong. No, I said, I'm not strong, I'm just trying to survive. That night, as I left Ms. Hattie's house, I looked up at the sky. The stars were shining, and I felt a determination inside me. This plan was very complicated, very risky, but I had no other choice, because I was no longer a victim. I was a fighter. Cynthia and Terrence thought I was weak, but they forgot. Weakness isn't always visible. Sometimes a person who seems weak is the one hiding the strongest weapons. And my weapon was knowledge. The knowledge I gained in 27 years at AGH. That knowledge would now destroy them. When I got home, Cynthia and Terrence were watching TV. When they saw me, Cynthia asked, "Where were you, Marcus?" "I was at church with Miss Hattie," I said, smiling. "We prayed a little." Good, she said. It'll do you good. She looked at me with that smile, that fake interest. And I thought to myself, in 2 weeks, that smile will be gone. That night, lying in my bed, I slept peacefully for the first time, because now I had a plan, and that plan was perfect. Jamal would find the key tomorrow. Ms. Hattie would reach out to her old AGH friends, and in 2 weeks, I would humiliate Cynthia and Terrence in front of everyone. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, and I was preparing the coldest revenge. Because I am Marcus, and don't forget. 2 weeks later, on the evening of November 15th, our house was filled with guests. Cynthia had prepared everything perfectly for my healing, or so it seemed. Our living room was decorated with white lilies. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens wafted from the kitchen. Friends from church, neighbors, my former colleagues from AGH had come, about 30 people. And of course, Miss Hattie and Jamal were there too. Cynthia hugged me in front of everyone. "Welcome everyone," she said loudly. "Today we've gathered for the healing of my dear husband, Marcus. Marcus, you are the meaning of my life." She turned to me and smiled. That smile seemed very sincere, but I now knew the lie behind that smile. Terrence was standing next to me. In the role of full-time caregiver with a tray in his hand, he offered me a glass of water. "Marcus, you haven't taken your medicine," he said loudly so everyone could hear. He turned to the guests. "Marcus has Alzheimer's. Sometimes he forgets, but don't worry, I'm here." The guests looked at me with pity. "How sad," said one. "But how lucky you are, Marcus, to have such a devoted wife and friend by your side." A fire burned inside me. When I heard those words, I could smell a big lie. But I smiled, because it wasn't time yet. Not yet. Dinner was served. Everyone ate, drank, and chatted. I sat at the head of the table, silently. Cynthia stood beside me, holding my hand. "What a beautiful couple," someone said. After the meal, the pastor stood up. "Now," he said, "our brother Marcus will share his testimony. Our brother Jamal will assist him." The guests applauded. Cynthia smiled at me, as if to say, "Talk about the illness, then thank me." Jamal connected the laptop to the TV. The projector screen opened. "Who wants to start?" I asked. Ms. Hattie raised her hand. "I will," she said. She stood up and approached the screen. She opened the first slide. There was a photo on the slide, and she read aloud, 2017, Valentine's Day. Cynthia and Terrence in the Bahamas. The room suddenly fell silent. Ms. Hattie pointed to the slide. The guests looked. In the photo, Cynthia and Terrence were on a beach, embracing. They were kissing. The date stamp below the photo read, February 14th, 2017. Cynthia's face turned pale. This is a misunderstanding," she said. "A misunderstanding," Ms. Hattie said, a sharpness in her voice. "The date is very clear. Valentine's Day 2017. At that time, you were married with Marcus." Terrence jumped to his feet. "That photo is fake. Who put that there?" "Fake?" I said, raising my voice for the first time. I stood up. Everyone in the room turned to look at me. "I didn't take that photo, but the hotel clerk in the Bahamas took it, and I found that hotel through the credit card records. Cynthia told me she was on a business trip that weekend, but in reality, she was in the Bahamas with you." Cynthia looked at me. There was panic in her eyes. "Marcus, you're a sick man. You're confused." "Confused?" I said. I turned to Jamal. Jamal opened the second slide. There was a document on the screen. He read it aloud. A GH Investment Fund Purchase Certificate. 2005. Marcus Washington alone purchased high-interest health shares. Signature, Marcus Washington. Cynthia Washington's signature is not present. Jamal showed the document to the guests. "This," he said, "is the first document of the shares my uncle accumulated during the marriage. Only his signature is on it, not Cynthia's." According to Georgia law, these shares are not marital property. They are Marcus's separate property. A neighbor looked at Cynthia. Cynthia, were you trying to take Marcus's money? No, Cynthia said. I was just trying to help him. Help? I said. My voice was shaking, but not from fear anymore, from anger. You and Terrence talked in the guest room 6 weeks ago. I heard you. Marcus's illness is an opportunity for us, you said, Cynthia. You said that. I heard you that morning. Everyone in the room listened, shocked and silent. Ms. Hattie opened the third slide. She pulled out another document. A GH Health Unit report, she said. Date, November 10th. Dr. Elena Vasquez. Cognitive assessment of patient Marcus Washington has been performed. Result, mild memory loss is present, but cognitive competence is sufficient for all legal proceedings. The patient has the capacity to make his own decisions. Ms. Hattie held the document toward Cynthia. This, she said, is proof that Marcus, you, and Dr. Evans were lying. Marcus is not ill. He's just in the early stages of mild Alzheimer's, and he can still make his own decisions. You were trying to steal his money by appointing yourself as his guardian. Cynthia collapsed. Literally, she collapsed into the chair. She buried her face in her hands. Terrence tried to run away, but Jamal blocked his way. No, Terrence, he said. You can't run away, because the fourth slide is waiting for you. Jamal opened the last slide. There was a letter on the screen. This, he said, is a testimony my uncle wrote to all of you. Jamal read the letter aloud. Dear guests, today you have gathered for my healing, and today I want to tell you the truth. I, Marcus Washington, worked at AGH for 27 years. I archived every document. I learned every legal loophole. Over the years, I accumulated wealth, stocks, funds, private accounts, all through my own efforts. But 6 weeks ago, my wife and my closest friend turned me into an opportunity. They saw my Alzheimer's diagnosis as a tool to steal my money. Today, I am showing you the evidence, because I can no longer tolerate silence. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And I have a message for you. Old men are not weak. Sick men are not worthless. We are still here. We are still fighting. And we, CAN, win. Thank you. Marcus Washington. When Jamal finished the letter, there was a deep silence in the room. Then, someone began to clap. Miss Hattie. Then, a neighbor. Then, others. And suddenly the room was filled with applause. Cynthia raised her head. Her eyes were filled with tears. Marcus, she said, You what? I said. My voice was cold. Are you going to apologize? You lived off my money for 23 years, off my sacrifice, and now you tried to exploit me. An apology isn't enough, Cynthia. Terrence started to cry. Marcus, please, You what? I said. I turned to him. You were my blood brother, Terrence. I gave you a home, I gave you a future, and you stole my wife. You slept with her in my house, in my bed, under the same roof as me. You are the definition of betrayal. Terrence couldn't say anything. He just cried. At that moment, something stirred inside me. Victory? Partly. But at the same time, there was also a deep sadness. Because these people were once my family. And now I had ruined them. But I had to do it. Because if I hadn't, they would have ruined me. The guests slowly began to leave. No one looked at Cynthia or Terrence. They were now invisible people. They had been disgraced. The next day, Cynthia and Terrence left the house. Cynthia took some clothes and moved into a hotel. Terrence, with tears streaming from his eyes, walked out the door with his gray sports bag. Neither of them looked at me. A week later, my lawyer informed me Cynthia had filed for divorce. But in that case, she couldn't claim any division of property because the documents proved everything. The shares were my personal property. The house had been purchased before it was registered in my name, and the guardianship plan was rejected by the court. because the new report I received from AGH confirmed my cognitive competence. Terrence lost his job at AGH because Ms. Hattie had told her old friends everything, and due to an ethical violation, Terrence was asked to resign. Dr. Evans faced an investigation. Allegations surfaced that he had provided Cynthia with a false report in exchange for money. But I had moved beyond revenge, because I no longer thought about them. They were in the past. I was looking to the future. 2 months later, on a cold December morning, Jamal and I went to the AGH building. We stopped in front of my old office. There was a new name on the door, Maria Gonzalez, manager. But the desk was still the same desk, that old, wooden, scratched desk. We went inside. A young woman was sitting at the desk. She smiled when she saw me. "How can I help you?" "I'm Marcus Washington," I said. "I worked at this desk for years. I just wanted to see a memory." Maria stood up. "Are you Marcus?" she said, her eyes lighting up. "My boss always talks about you. You're the legendary archivist." I smiled. Legendary? Number? Just meticulous. That day, I met my colleagues at the old AGH building. They greeted me, hugged me. "Marcus, we missed you," they said. "We want you back." "Back?" I said. "I'm retired." "But," said my manager, "we want to offer you a consultancy position. To teach your knowledge to young managers, 2 days a week, a few hours. What do you say?" When I heard that offer, my heart started racing, because it wasn't just a job offer, it was proof that I was still valuable, still needed. "I accept," I said. Epilogue. A year later, Jamal graduated from Morehouse. Not at the wedding, but at the graduation ceremony, I stood and applauded him, because he was my son. Cynthia wasn't invited, neither was Terrence. They were no longer part of our lives. But Miss Hattie was there. My old friends from AGH were there. And that day I realized I had a real family, not one bound by blood, but by loyalty.